Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by 10th Man, Arwin, Chocolate Saiyan, Father of a Soul and Child, Neil, Paul, and a whole bunch of people in Discord. So welcome, one and all.
Hello, hello, hello.
Good morning.
Morning, good morning.
Hey George. Hey Chocolate. My camera has crashed. Wonderful. Moving on. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge horizon formerly known as Earth curvature?
Nonsense.
It's really annoying. I put my camera onto a little arm so I could extend it out by about 2 or 3 feet, and the first time I've come to use it, it's crashed. Isn't that wonderful? No, sphere edge horizons. We were discussing it in the pre-show.
It's nonsense.
No evidence.
Nobody claims the horizon is Earth curvature.
That's right. Nobody claims the horizon is Earth curvature. Yeah, they do. Globers do. And if you're claiming nobody claims it, then you're only referring to flat earthers, because we know there's no Earth curve edge horizon physically blocking boats and buildings. It can't be measured. It's beyond the geometric capabilities of a sphere. There is no geometric sphere edge horizon to block boats and buildings. Earth's not a sphere.
It should be easy to demonstrate, though, if it was.
Yeah, you'd have a hill in the way. Yeah, you'd have a hill in the way between you and targets, as asserted in the Earth curve mathematics. That's how they say it would be easy to distinguish. You can see a hill between you and targets in the distance. That would be the Earth curve edge getting in the way.
Right, so if you went to the Grand Canyon and was like 1 mile away, 1 foot from the ground, you should be able to see stars below the horizon, because it's a big hole in that geometry.
Stars below the physical geometric sphere edge Earth curve horizon that they claim is blocking your distance. Yeah, you'd be able to get above that based on altitude, exactly as depicted in their maths. It still requires you to reify a horizon that you see into a physical geometric sphere edge horizon, which it is not.
Well, you'll never see the stars below the horizon, even at the Grand Canyon. It just, you'll see land beyond it, but you'll never see stars below the horizon.
Yeah, well, below what? Not actual location where the sky and ground appear to meet, based on optical limitations or limitations of weather.
Yeah, well, the idea that the Earth is geometric or refracted geometry, which is ridiculous, but you've got a giant gash in the geometry. Why can't you see stars through it?
But why are we looking to the stars to determine where we are on Earth? Why don't they just demonstrate it on Earth?
Well, that's what he's saying. That's what he's saying, Neil. He's saying that if the Earth was a sphere with a radius of 3959, then you'd have a geometric physical sphere edge horizon that would block the distant stars as it goes past its physicality. Well,
It's
we
still
don't.
looking to the stars, just measure it.
What, the physical horizon we don't have?
Show me a curve. If there's a curve, show me a curve.
Yeah, there's supposed to be one at the horizon. Of course, that maths requires us reify the horizon into a physical sphere edge, which it's not. So when they say, show us the curve, well, how do they show you the curve? Well, they show you the horizon and tell you to believe that it's the sphere edge, even though we've debunked that. Hence, nobody claims the horizon is Earth curve. They chant.
That's a new chant, by the way, after the Black Swan.
Yeah, say it like a flat earther. Nobody claims the horizon is Earth curve. Well, we're hoping to get to that point, but at the moment it's just you that realises the horizon's not Earth curve, even though Tim Osman held up a picture that said this is Earth curve and showed several pictures of a horizon claimed to be blocking the distant things. Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
More nonsense.
They have a 15-degree movement of the luminary called the sun, and they say that's because Earth is turning underneath. And we say, well, if that's the case, then a drone that's hovering or a helicopter or anything that is not attached to the Earth, all it has to do is go up, and the Earth should turn under that. But since that secondary reference doesn't happen, then we can discount them saying that the Earth is turning under the sun. It's the luminaries that are turning.
Any scientific evidence of gravity?
No, it's been dead for 106 years. Einstein threw it under the bus. They're into a whole different 4D world that doesn't exist in our 3D world.
How did he get away with that?
Imagination.
And don't forget, you can't move around in this 4D world either, according to the Glovers. You can't move around in a 4D world.
How did
But
they say
somehow
that?
or another, you can account for the orbit of Mercury in the 4D world that we can't move around in or find or do anything with. But yeah, that makes sense.
Paul, what do you mean by that?
Well, that's what Rumpus said the other day. He says you can't move around in a 4D world. In his 4D model world, you can't move around in it. That's what Rumpus says.
Hello, guys. Sorry.
Hey,
Yeah, Alwyn.
Munch.
That's all right. Don't apologise.
so in the 3D world, we can't measure Mercury, but in the 4D world, because of special mathematics, they can measure Mercury. And then how does that convert back to a 3D world?
It doesn't. That's why they need to conjure up this other dimension in order to fill the gap.
You can't account for the presupposition of an orbit in the 3D world that we live in.
Correct.
Because come on, that makes sense, doesn't it?
Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
What is the sun?
No idea, Neil. Not it.
Why do they have songs like "Here Comes the Sun" when the sun's not supposed to be the one moving? That's a little weird.
Do.
Well, they've tricked in a little bit with the language to say that the sun's rising and lowering, kind of puts in your mind that it's not traveling over you,
So literally, the language we use debunks the claims that are made.
Yeah, that's intentional,
just-
obviously. Go on, whoever that was.
I was going to say it's a trick. It's just a tricky way of throwing it in, because if the sun's going down below what, like it's just a way to slip that in.
Yeah, physical geometric sphere edge horizon.
And if the reasoning behind the sun setting is the sun going down, what happens when the sun doesn't go down? Would that be considered a black swan? Something that's supposed to happen on this model but doesn't? Uh-oh.
Speaking of things that don't happen on the model, any evidence of the R value, Earth radius?
Nonsense.
I love the new answer, Neil. Everything is nonsense.
Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
That's really nonsense. But you tell a good story, Nathan.
Not my story. It's the
Well,
story of
when you
Thea.
tell it the way they have it, it's very good.
Recent story too, eh? We found out recently. It was only from the year 2000.
I said the way you tell it, the way they say it, puts a lot of drama into it. But it's nonsense.
What, the story of Thea smashing into Earth at a glancing blow and the
Yeah,
debris
that
coalescing
one.
into the moon.
That'd be it.
Talking of just so stories provided by people in authority, any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
Email.
Email? Another Dr. Beffy reference by chance?
It's all I have to say.
Do you think she's thinking about it though? Or she's just like, I know we can't divine her thoughts, but as people start to put pressure on her, you think in the back of her mind she may be thinking about it, or she's just caught up in the money?
Can't know that, Neil. Like you say, we don't know. Who cares? I don't care about these people's motivations. You know,
I think
the
Dr.
argument-
Becky is fully immersed in globe belief. Fully immersed.
But Arwin will
Yeah,
certainly
I
divine her
thought-
thoughts for you.
I will do that every single time.
We can't know their motivation, and frankly, does the motivation change their objective or their dynamic when they come here, or the nonsense that they put out? No, and that's what we're challenging, and I think it should stay that way.
I reserve the right to divine people's thoughts.
Do whatever you like. I'm not the boss of you.
Are we still on the multi-line core, or did we
We've
move
covered
on
that.
from that?
No, but go on.
No, because over the weekend I was engaging with some ballers on 24/7. I found a interesting citation from an article in Scientific American that kind of shut down his whole thinking of how we know what's going on in the core. So it goes like this: how do we know the temperature? Talking about the core, the answer is that we really don't, at least not with great certainty or precision. The center of the Earth lies 6,400 kilometers, 4,000 miles beneath our feet, but the deepest that it has ever been possible to drill to make direct measurements of temperature or other physical quantities is just about 10 kilometers, 6 miles. Ironically, the core of the Earth is by far less accessible, more inaccessible to direct probing than would be the surface of Pluto. Not only do we not have the technology to go to the core, but it is not at all clear how it will ever be possible to do so. End quote.
Notice how the entire
That's from-
premise of that discussion is how difficult it would be to get to a core, not the fact that the core hasn't been proven, isn't verified, they've got no justification to assume it. They're just talking about how difficult it is to measure. So simultaneously reifying it by saying how difficult it is to qualify it, measure it, whatever. But that still makes the reader think, oh, right, so it's really difficult to measure the core that we have got.
Yeah, that's how I heard it.
And telling you that we will never be able to go to it. It's the surface of Pluto is more accessible than the core. Think about that.
So then why are they allowed to teach it in school then, all right? Unless it could be proven, then it should not be taught in school.
It's indoctrination, Neil. It's not teaching.
When it was the church doing it, people who opposed it weren't treated very nicely. And if someone came along like you, Neil, to them and said, it's just a religious belief, like precisely what we're doing, then you met with a lot of opposition, because people don't want to believe that their worldview and the teachings or the master's words that they must abide by, I might add, are in any way false, because they must abide by them, and that would just lead to a lot of disdain. And, the average normie just wants to get on with it, and if they say that's how it is, and that's how it is. So you're the person that's banging on the church doors telling them that they're indoctrinating people with religious faith. But the religion isn't currently whatever the church were promoting, based on their translations of Bible texts, their translations being the operative words, but based on what the current, whatever power that should not be you want to describe, government, NASA, whoever, tells you the world is. Well, that's their faith, that's their religion, and it's the religion of the Western world because they say that's what the world is. That's the philosophy that we're going to adhere to from now on. This is the world, okay? We've all looked into it, we've all figured it out, and you just need to accept it.
Yeah, but they didn't figure it out. They figured out a fantasy. I bet if most of the people come to realize that, hey, wait a second, this is not scientific fact, they would be a little curious.
That's why we're here on this show, and that's why we
I choose
share
my
with our
words.
friends.
I choose my words carefully. Figured it out.
I got a question about authority and perceived authority.
Okay.
If say if a baller challenges you to take a physics test, right? And you agree, are you lending credence to them being authority in physics?
No. You could challenge me to take a test on a particular philosophy, and all you'd be testing is my understanding of the philosophy as opposed to whether or not the philosophy was capable of reification.
Yeah, but if they're the ones judging whether you pass or fail, aren't they taking a perceived authority in that sense?
Well, passed or failed based on the parameters and the testing structure. So if within the parameters of the test it says that we're going to be testing this person on their understanding of Newton's physics, now your challenge to that and your answer won't get you a mark because there's a set right answer. So yes, it's based on their rules. What's your point, John?
I think go on.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say Conspiracy Cats is he's trying to challenge Brian and Flatzoid to take one of his physics tests.
Oh, so as opposed to actually proving all these ridiculous claims him and his ridiculous model make, like gas pressure without a container, without the container, there can be no pressure. He wants to give people tests.
Yeah, that's funny.
What does he think? He's still in school trying to teach people, trying to teach little kids? What's wrong with this guy?
Couldn't be any
Go
more
somewhere with your
condescending,
test,
really.
bro. Conspiracy moron. Like, are you feeling all right, bro? What the
Is he
hell?
appealing to academia?
Well, you just need to quote him. Without the container, there can be no pressure. End quote, Conspiracy Cats. Or, without the balloon, there is no pressure. End quote, Conspiracy Cats. So this guy, at a fundamental level, understands that space is fake. It stands in violation of natural law, and he can understand and detail that for an audience. What's he going to do when we point out that that's correct? Without the container, there can be no pressure. Well, take my physics test. I'm wonderful.
What is that going to prove, though? That I'm trying to figure out. What is that going to prove?
It's not trying to
Hopefully,
prove anything. What he's doing is deflecting from the real issue and trying to get Brian and Flatzoid on something else.
the glorified ad hominem attack. Let's test your knowledge personally on these given limited subjects. Okay, what are they debating about? Is it about their personal knowledge of your physics test, or are we debating about the nature of reality and the fact that the sky vacuum's not real? And by your own words of admission, without the container there can be no pressure. So space is fake. It stands directly in violation of natural law. What's that you say? Take a physics test? Well, will the physics test ever change that natural law that pisses in the face of the sky vacuum? No, it won't.
That's what I was going to say. Why don't they just say, well, demonstrate gas pressure without a container? That's the only test we want to see.
Hasn't he said that he was going to do that at one time on some show, but he has never done it?
No, that must be someone else,
yeah,
because
Timmy-
Yeah, he
no.
was going to do that, but he required 2 containers.
Of course he did. The average standard globie who claims you can have gas pressure without a container requires 2 containers to demonstrate it.
Unbelievable.
Well,
Exactly.
then they got a point if they're going to look at it that way. No, you're wrong. It takes 2 containers.
Yeah, so without the container or containers, there can be no pressure. That will never be violated. That will never be demonstrated because you require containment to have gas pressure. It needs something to press upon. And we're breathing gas pressure. So there must be containment because, quote, without the container, there can be no pressure, end quote, conspiracy cats.
Yeah, you're going to frustrate them with that, and they're going to say, then show me the dome. Show me the dome.
At that point, I'm glad you brought that up. So, another way of staying in the denial stage. So rather than addressing the fact that we would require containment to be alive, and we are alive, so antecedent-consequent relationship logic implies there must be containment. Do I know what the containment is? No. No, I don't. And why don't I? Well, because there's a massive deception about the sky being a vacuum. So are they researching what's containing the gas? No, they're telling us that there isn't one. So shock horror, me the mere mortal does not know what the sky is. But the person who's said, well, what's the dome made of, has sidestepped having to contemplate and process the fact that without the container, there can be no pressure, and we are breathing it. So they assert, by way of attack, what must the containment that we must have be? Because they won't phrase it in that way, but that's what they're asking. So immediately when someone asks me that, so glad that you now accept that we must be in a contained system in order to be breathing. I don't know what the sky is. But you've got questions. Me too. I could ask you the same. So what's the sky made of then? Because I don't know and you don't know. So we're all in the same happy boat now, realising that we must have containment and we're told the sky is a vacuum. We've been deceived.
So that's just another way that the rhetoric has changed, right? Because back in the day, they used to tell us we don't need a container at all, right? That we don't require a container for gas pressure.
Now
Then
they say,
slowly, eventually, it became, oh, gravity is the container, right? Or weight is the container, or whatever other nonsense is the container, or the universe is the container, right? We've heard all these variations of this nonsense, but back in the day, it was we didn't need one at all. So seems like they're trying to catch up. They just don't know how.
But they forgot one thing, that Einstein 106 years ago and Musser today, gravity is not a force. So it can't be gravity because we have to accept Einstein's 4D world. It's an effect. So now that's out the window. And they still haven't answered it, but they know you can't have air pressure without it.
What? Why would you need a
Hey,
force
Nate.
to contain the gas on a ball?
you wouldn't, you'd need containment. That would be a container.
Right. Right. So you just need some space-time bending in a certain setup and then prevent the escape of gas by limiting the amount of space-time it can pass through.
Can you show me space-time bending,
How?
Arwen?
Whoa.
But
How does that work?
I didn't do the theme music.
Hey, Nathan
How
Oakley.
would you do it? Well, I can
I ask you
draw
a
it
question?
out for you.
Hold on, Owen. Go on, Don.
I want to pick at your brain and see if I make any sense to you. I think gravity is observation hijacking. May I explain?
Observation hijacking. I don't know what you were observing, but go ahead.
Well, I'm observing is, you know how they describe that gravity is center of mass, right? So that's why everything sticks to the so-called sphere. Right? So why do you not weigh heavier on the sea level than you do, like, say, a mountain?
Yeah, but they assert that this is the case. Have you not heard of the Etvos effect? If not, go and look it up so you can. I don't want to go through the Etvos effect, but feel free to just Google it and research what they claim in this regard in terms of things changing their weight. Again, just so once you research it, you know why this is not a valid claim. They're inventing the phenomena within the mathematics. As always,
It's
of course.
mostly just temperature differential and pressure differential that causes the weight to be
Maybe.
different.
Maybe. But we've got a very non-natural phenomena being studied and being qualified in maths. And no, it's definitely not science. So it's invented within mathematics and asserted as being real. Several people have had, including Sleeping Warrior and Betty Van Velsen, have had globe is over a barrel on their mathematical reification in this regard. But yeah, they do actually make a claim in that regard.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Any glober here want to argue for Evos?
Or curve or something.
Or anything heliocentric religion related? Knowing full well that it's not true and we can debunk it.
Like anything, chocolate.
Shout out to Mebby Styles. Hopefully I've said your name correctly. Thank you very much indeed for the super chat. Really appreciate the support.
Catch that. I said if they argue for this, it'll be the peak of their argument for gravity.
The peak.
Well, I had one for you when you brought up the Beatles, Here Comes the Sun. You got to go through the whole Beatles song list. They also said here, there, everywhere.
What, the sun?
I know.
Hold on. They also say, I look at the world and I notice it's turning while my guitar gently weeps. I don't notice no turning.
Yeah, but they also say it's a day tripper.
Would you like to hear what Blue Marble Science had to say about containment being required?
When you see these citations talking about the walls of a container, they're generally talking in common sense terms about a defined system that's going to obey the gas laws. And to do that, you have to have a hard container, sealed container. If you want any of the gas laws to work, that volume is required. To do that, you have to have a hard container, sealed container. If you want any of the gas laws to work, that volume is required.
And that's perfect, but he's going to say it doesn't apply to the Earth.
Welcome to Flat Earth, then?
Yeah.
Marble?
What? He's gonna say it doesn't apply to space. I'm telling you.
Yeah, that's fine, because space isn't real. So what, it doesn't apply to your mathematical reification of this philosophy? Yeah, we know. Yeah, your model violates natural law. What's natural law? Things that occur always in nature. But what they are can't be applied to your model? That's because we don't live on your model.
Well, then he said any of the gas laws. If you are any of the gas laws, you need a hard sealed container. Wow. Okay, buddy. Thanks.
Yeah, you can't have gas pressure without a container. It's a necessary antecedent. In case you were unaware,
obviously he's already provided the cowbell because he provided a video with 2 containers providing gas pressure. So way to go, Blue Marble.
Of course, his video was titled Gas Pressure Without a Container, and now he's overtly stating that you require containment, even though he's claiming the complete opposite in a video that's still out there titled and good enough in terms of its catchment to get a PhD to stand behind it. Amazingly, his 2-container demonstration of gas pressure without a container with 2 containers.
Maybe they should just start redefining what it is to mean, what it is to be a container. Maybe if they just do that, that'll kind of fix the problem.
No, what they do is they redefine what is required to contain gas within their fundamentalist zealotry reification of a model that we don't live on. In other words, they say the natural laws that we experience always don't apply to their model that we don't live on.
Well,
Right, so
unfortunately, this clown
is no longer a
he's
container,
already tried that. Arwen, he's already tried that. This is the same guy who was asked for what did he say? He said, give me a citation that says a open pipe is a container. He needed a citation for that.
Well, it can contain something. So
I think that's a vile request.
Listen, pipe down with that, okay?
Well, it's in his statement right at the beginning. Any of the gas laws. So he's basically admitting there are gas laws. And what are the gas laws?
Well, any Globers in Discord agree or disagree with Hillbilly Blue Balls?
any globers at all in Discord.
Well, I did hear them yesterday while they're trying to figure that out, that, you can define things however you want, whenever you want to define things. So basically, the Earth can be I can't say the word, an open system, a closed system, or even an isolated system. Depends on how you want to define it and what parameters you want to put on it. So really, it can go with whatever they want, whenever they want it.
Yeah, in terms of what they're calling the Earth, they're describing their model. So yeah, it depends how we define the terms within our reification of the model. But that doesn't mean that because they can define things about their model differently one day and then differently the other, yeah, that's a necessity when it doesn't match with reality, though. But again, I highlight, that's just them describing how their model works. So when, for instance, Rumpus says the second law of thermodynamics, that's a natural law, something that applies always, doesn't apply to the Earth, he's actually saying this law of nature, something that applies always, cannot be applied to my philosophy that I have reified into existence, known as Globe Earth model. It doesn't apply to that. Few shout-outs. That Flat Fellow has sent 2 smiley face sunglasses stickers. Thank you very much indeed for the super chats. Also, Billy Wazzer has joined as a penguin. Thank you very much for joining, Billy. Forward to seeing you chats in members only. So, that's where we're at, is it? We have demolished the assertion that we've got a physical sphere beneath our feet, that we've got a sky vacuum above our head, or that the ground beneath our feet is actually moving in any way, shape, or form. And the response we get from some of the higher echelons, shall we say, of the globe rhetoric trenches, is to ask us to take physics tests. That's their response.
Yeah, it would seem that way.
Or they'll label you dangerous.
Well, yeah.
We're dangerous because we
asking
don't think the floor is a
questions.
ball that's going somewhere. That's adorable. Maybe you sound dangerous if you think the floor is a ball that's going somewhere. I'd have to stay away from you.
What the FED show, if I may, just from Nathan's last summary, the FED show has done is shown that every time they argue in defense of a model. And when you ask the right question about their model and compare it to natural law, their model dies. This is where they are, no-win situation.
Yeah, and the lower level fundies that don't really understand what happens here will insist that you present them with a model to rebut their model. Not only will they insist that you reify their model, but they'll insist that you hold up a false dichotomy to challenge their model. It just goes beyond belief. Try and highlight that to somebody who's a really newcomer to this argument or this debate and say, well, that's a reification fallacy. Half the time they don't even know what you mean. Then that's a false dichotomy. And again, they don't know what you mean. Where's your model? I'm not going to debate you unless you've got a model. Oh, right. So unless I reify models into existence, a fallacy, you won't debate with me unless I will be as fallacious as you. Okay, get lost. Start off and reify your model, your philosophy into existence. But because I won't do the same, you don't think it's worthy to talk to me? I agree. Yeah, you're not worthy of my time because I won't reify a model next to yours so you can argue the toss between the two in false dichotomy. Yeah, look it up. Reification.
That's the key word, reification of a model, because you could go buy a small replica of a Ferrari in a hobby store, and it's to scale to something that's real, like a real Ferrari. So there's a model of a real Ferrari, but in a smaller scale. That's not reification because it's there. Theirs is a reification. They can't provide their model in reality.
Go on, Don.
I don't think a lot of people understand why models are fallacious. You know, like you're not going to recreate reality in a jar. You know what I mean? I think people believe that you can, though. Like when they say, this is my model, they'll never present to you the heliocentric model. They may give you some formulas, or you'll never see a physical model. It just won't happen.
And even if they could, if they presented a working sphere in a vacuum with vegetation growing on it and gas adhering to the sides of the ball and not dispersing into the vacuum, let's just say they achieved that. Would that mean that that was where you were standing as you stared at it?
Unless I could drive my car on it, then it means nothing.
Absolutely not. We're talking about something that's tiny in, even the biggest of vacuum chambers capable of creation on Earth. Let's say they could put a rock in it, get it to suspend in the middle of the vacuum chamber and have gas stuck to the side of it, not filling the vacuum, because that's going to happen. Let's say they did that. Well, would that mean that as you look in through the glass window, that you're stood on that representation of what they say the world is? Never possible to achieve inside it, but hypothetically, if they could, it wouldn't make that the world. We're not standing on a model. We don't live on a model. It's the fallacy of misplaced concreteness. Making that which is not real, that would be the model inside a vacuum chamber, the world that you're actually standing on. The map is not the terrain. Because there's a philosophy that says we're stood on a sphere does not make it so. It's merely a philosophy. So to reify it is to make it into something that you're actually standing on. Well, I look at the horizon and assume that it's a physical sphere edge blocking things in the distance. Therefore, I'm stood on a sphere. Here's the maths to go along with it. Making it ever more real. No, you're not living on a model. And what is the world we're debating about? Well, it's the heliocentric model.
Well, that's the fear. That's the fear every baller has, because they hear what we're saying, they see that their model doesn't make sense, and they're faced with this inner thought: "Oh my gosh, I have been fooled. No, I can't go there," and so they fight it.
Yeah, like I said earlier, when somebody goes, well, what's the dome made of? Because they've appreciated that you can't have gas pressure without a container. It's their way of sidestepping the awful reality that the sky is not a vacuum, that space is fake, by saying, unless you can provide an alternative. And what would happen if you did? Well, the dome's made of sapphire. Right, well, let's pull apart why it's not made of sapphire. And once I do, making you wrong, my sky vacuum will exist again. No, it won't. Beyond the point of you demolishing the argument that's claimed to be real about the sky, which is that it's a vast space for gas to fill, and gas isn't filling it in violation of natural law, and people visit this place and then send pictures back to a claim to be sphere Earth of men on high wire, well, that wouldn't make your religion true if you debunk the fact that I don't know what the sky's made of. When there's a massive deception about what it actually is. Shock horror, people are being deceived left and right about what it is, so therefore they don't know what it actually is. But does that mean you disproving of it being a sky vacuum suddenly isn't real? No, but you can easily sidestep it by asking your opponent what it really is then. Not acknowledging the fact that, yeah, you'd need containment to have gas pressure like we're breathing.
Yeah,
There are many...
falsification is independent of replacement. We don't need to give you another cool story to replace the cool story that we just destroyed. That's a negative.
Most people don't realise that. Unless you've got an alternative, I will not accept anything beyond what I currently understand, because that's been accepted by the consensus, and therefore that's reality. Now, if you challenge it and demonstrate how it's incorrect, unless you have an alternative, just so story or otherwise, that I can present and won't be laughed at, I'm not going to accept that my current understanding is wrong, even though it's been demonstrated to be wrong.
That's where they're at.
Well,
yeah.
We're going to learn today.
The worst one is the black swan in terms of the hand waves that you get. Because their initial hand wave back in 2020, Jan and Feb, was refraction. And now we laugh at that and say, great, well, as soon as we hear it, welcome to flat Earth is going to be the response you get. So no physical geometric spheroid horizon to derive an R value from, so you can't measure geometry, so it's not geometric, so it's not what your maths is claiming, it's not this horizon marked with an X labelled as horizon. The horizon's not Earth curve. What next? Nobody claims it's Earth curve. Yeah, welcome to flat Earth is what they'll get when they say refraction. So what do we get now? Well, we get I don't accept it. I don't accept the black swan. I couldn't give a crap. No one's here to change your belief, you fundy. We're here to demonstrate to an audience what is and is not capable in terms of geometry with your sphere belief. Now, we've demonstrated that it's not capable of being a physical geometric sphere edge blocking boats and buildings. It's not what the horizon we present have. That's not what it is. Well, you don't have to accept that. Like we care. Do you think I get paid by referrals or by conversions? No, I don't care. Go in peace, my friend. You don't accept that we haven't got a physical sphere edge. You want to look at this picture and go, that's an Earth curve right there. That's what's blocking the bottom of the sun. Earth curve. No, it isn't. It's a not actual position. It's a not actual location. It's apparent. By definition, it's not Earth curve. And it's beyond the physical capabilities of an Earth curve edge if it was geometric. It isn't. We're told all the time how non-geometric it is by your own side here in trench level. So beyond that, being told how non-physical it is by the opponents, which is pretty devastating every single time it happens, and amusing, I might add. What else have they got? Well, they've got a hand wave, or concede that the horizon's not Earth curve. Those are the two options. That's what they're left with.
No, that's
forget
beautiful.
the third. The cute times that they've tried to call it a straw man, like the geometric horizon is a straw man, or Al-Biruni's a straw man, or the entire Black Swan argument's a straw man. Can't forget those.
Well, they're akin to saying, with reference to Earth rotation, that you and your reference frames are ruined. Saying the black swan is a straw man, well, the black swan modus tollens starts with the presupposition we're on a sphere because you fundies wouldn't give it up when he pointed out that it was a presupposition. So the fact that you wouldn't give it up meant we had to beg the question with you and say, if Earth's a sphere with the radius as it's claimed, then it would have these geometric limitations, physical limitations. And coincidentally, they're the same limitations laid down in your sphere maths. So it's very much saying your claim that Earth's a sphere. We just then demonstrate beyond all certitude that it could be anyway physical. That's the horizon. It isn't. So telling us that the Black Swan's a straw man, Al-Biruni's a straw man, those are your arguments. Like saying you and your reference frames are ruined. Those are your arguments. We don't need reference frames. We don't need physical horizons. We don't need Al-Biruni measuring R with a horizon that he claims is physical. We don't need the horizon to block boats and buildings so we can argue with you about how much or little you claim the physical horizons block the boat or building in the distance. We don't need any of those things. Those are your claims. So telling us it's a straw man is even better than telling us it's refraction. Oh, what? Non-geometric refraction then? Wonderful. Welcome to flat Earth. Straw man, you say what? The claim that Earth's a sphere, horizon, physical, geometric values. That's a straw man. Oh, wonderful. Welcome to flat Earth.
It's like they've been begging the question all this time, right? Presupposing that we have a radius of 3959, and that once we put that into an argument form, they're like, oh, wait a minute, you guys can't be begging the question. You're begging the wrong question, guys. None of us are saying this.
Yeah, none of us are saying this. You're begging the wrong question. Well, what question are we begging? Because the modus tollens logical consistency starts with your assertion that we're on a sphere with a radius value. The thing that when we pointed out that that's a begging the question fallacy, you told us, well, we already know we're on a sphere. Okay, so if we already know we're on a sphere, then we'll have sphere limitations, and we don't. Well, that's a straw man. What, your whole argument and religion? Yeah, we know. Welcome to flat Earth.
Well, how dare you point out the limitations that we don't have in a model that claims the limitations that we don't have? How dare you?
You haven't got the imagination for it, Chocolate. What's your problem? To be on a sphere, you need a high degree of imagination, you need three-dimensional worlds that can't be measured correctly with orbits, and you need 4D worlds that you don't live in to give you the maths to reify into physical existence when there aren't forces to hold gas pressure here, because you need containment. You need the imagination, Chocolate.
Other than that, all you need is theme music.
Yeah, what we really need is exactly a lot of indoctrination, a lot of fantasy that requires the suspension of disbelief for a sphere world and sky vacuum not being at the surface level, a sub-level narrative, call it subliminal if you like. But that narrative throughout the fiction of Star Wars is mirrored in the non-fiction lies that they bring you from a second law of thermodynamics violation sky vacuum known as outer space. Because if the sky was a vacuum, then the gas we breathe would fill the space. Gas fills the space it has to fill. And to laugh at you, they call space a space. Space. Well, why? Well, just to laugh at you.
This is when you start with begging the question. This is the sequence of death that every begging the question is going to go. So we do the what you call logical consistency of the Mohs Toland. So we give it to them, and it has to be a physical location. Then they say, "Oops, that didn't look good." So let's say refraction, can't see it. Well, then you can't ever measure it. Oops. Okay. Well, the horizon is not the Earth curve. Whoever said that, and then now it's okay. I don't accept the black swan.
I don't care, though. Their acceptance at the end of the argument is irrelevant. Like I said in the pre-show or at the beginning of the live show, when they reach the point of debate, that's where we get to. And they've got a steep wall to climb hereafter. But that's a personal struggle, right? That's nothing to do with me. Them climbing over that wall and reaching depression, because it's a long fall back down again. Well, we don't get to see that. But that's their personal struggle that I couldn't give a toss about.
Yeah, I mean, what level of depression do you have to reach when the very thing that's been for years and years touted as blocking boats and buildings in the distance in the horizon, now all of a sudden we don't see it, don't expect to see it, we've never seen it, being that we have an atmosphere, and like that's got to be some level of depression, man. That's hard. It's tough.
But it's the anatomy of what happens to anything that's begging the question when someone starts to ask good questions and it tears itself apart from within because it's not reality.
Unless the entire Western world is indoctrinated with that fundamentalist belief, because then they'll defend it in the face of you pointing out that it's a fallacy to assume your outcome. Or to put it another way, they'll cry, "We already know it's a sphere." In other words, my justification for you pointing out that I've begged the question and assumed my outcome in my statement that if Earth's a sphere, then we'll have boats blocked by this amount, and here's the maths to prove it, pointing out that that's a logical fallacy wasn't enough. They cried, "We already know." Hence, we end up, by being forced to beg the question on their behalf, Modus Toland's debunking their claim that we're on a physical sphere. We're not. It's been debunked. There's no going back from the black swan. And again, I'll highlight, if you see that as a massive wall to climb and just go hand wave, I'm staying right where I am, and I'll argue all day long in the chat comments of debating channels that are unlike mine and say, sod you, if you don't want to come on the show, you're not going to get to chat here. Yeah, well, if you want to spend your entire time just arguing with flat earthers, challenging them to prove what the sky is, for example, then more power to you. You know, live in that cognitive pain as long as you like. Me, I've climbed the wall, had a long fall, shook it off, and then moved on. And life is better for it. Now, the fact that you're still on the side of depression, denial, anger, and bargaining doesn't bother me in the slightest. That's your problem. Bundies we're talking about here, globe believers that have come here and been force-fed the red pill and really don't like the bitter taste it's left in their mouth. So they argue with us all day long.
Well, it's just a proof of circular reasoning because when they have the begging the question and we go through and destroy it, then they say, well, you know what? I'm just going to go back to my initial belief. I'm going to beg the question of the sphere again because I can't overcome your arguments. I'm going to get rid of the pain, I guess.
Yeah, give it a hand wave. Hey, Adam. Very good to have you.
Afternoon, guys.
Hey, Adam.
How's it going? Nice weekend, I hope.
No. My lad gave me food pot. I'm feeling sorry for myself now. Something dodgy my lad gave me. So,
oh, dear. That sounds pretty serious.
And,
is it something we're aware of already?
Cheered up by you mocking ballers, you lot. Is
it something we're aware of?
You what, bro?
Is this something we're aware of? Something personal that we shouldn't be discussing?
No. You just gave me the shits. That's all. I'm feeling a bit poorly.
I see. I shouldn't have asked you to elaborate. Thank you.
No, I didn't. I shouldn't have mentioned it. I don't know why I do. It's because I'm a whinging bloke, probably.
But you did nearly die, let's be honest.
It was close, Nate. It was bloody close.
I've been there,
you.
man. I've been there.
Yeah.
Women don't understand these things.
I don't think they've ever been that close. I don't think they're physically capable of getting that close to death and coming back so miraculously quick.
That's correct. I've seen the light also. Anyway, that was rather disgusting, but segued beautifully by me. So, where were we? I've completely forgotten. Somebody help me out.
Working at the
reification of the globe model.
Of course, that's what this all boils down to. And it always makes me hark back to, people being under the rule or the teachings of the church. And that was whatever the current rhetoric of the time was. And now we look back on it and just go, oh, well, that was just them with a religious belief. Well, I'm sure the people at the time, in the same way as the people here now, don't realise that they're under a religious doctrine or a reified philosophy, or however you want to describe it. They may not be aware of it, and they wouldn't have been aware of it back then. So the fact that people mandatorily or otherwise reify their mathematical philosophy that they're unaware of into existence is something that we're going to have to deal with, and like I say, we don't care about the trench level people. Overall, we wouldn't be here if we didn't concern ourselves with the fact that, for a start, my kids will have to at least at some level understand this for them to function socially. Why should they? Why do they need to know this philosophy any more than any other philosophy that we don't, adhere to? Do I need to teach them about simulation theory philosophy because it's another alternative way of understanding or believing the world works? Do I need to educate my daughters in those sorts of nonsenses? No, I don't need to. Well, why? Well, it's got just as much validity of claiming heliocentrism. Billy Wazzer says, stay safe and keep it flat. Indeed.
Have you? I didn't know if that amount, Nathan, was a Orwellian.
Oh, I didn't notice that. He sent £19.84. Yes, indeed. Wasn't the new Wonder Woman called 1984?
Yeah.
Sure, I saw an advert for Wonder Woman
Yes,
1984.
Yep. Wonder Woman 84. Yep.
Well, I've got to watch that now. I'm sure it's god-awful, but there's got to be a reason for why it's called 1984. At the very least, I'd like to know why. But thank you for the £19.84, Billy Wazzer.
It takes place in 1984.
It's set in 1984.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, there's still got to be
a
more.
Journey through time, isn't it? So it's the 70s series, what she's doing in spandex. So
I see. Well, I suppose
all the dates to pick.
Yeah, well, there's got to be more to it than that. Shout out to Retro Bill. I've been trying to brainwash myself back into being a globe believer, but it isn't taking any suggestions, Nathan and panel. No. It's a bit like being unplugged from the Matrix, right? If you understand at a basic level that you can't reify the horizon into a physical geometric sphere edge, for example, how are you going to not know that? How are you going to undo that? You can't just wake up one day and go, you know what? Maybe it is a sphere edge. What are you going to start telling yourself? Because all you'll have to process is the same thing the people who come here process it with. Well, the globe was bigger one day. Well, we don't have a sphere edge, but it is a sphere edge. But we don't have they have a little, what's the word Darwin uses? Paradoxical meltdown. Paradoxical meltdown. It is a sphere edge. It isn't a sphere edge. It's like a computing process that doesn't quite function and goes around in circles, so the computer crashes. It is a sphere edge. It isn't a sphere edge. We do. We do. System error.
I'll tell you why. I'll tell you with an analogy of math. If 2 + 2 is 4, and everyone is saying 2 + 2 is 5, but you know it's 4, how can you ever go back?
Well,
Because
we have had a suggestion.
can't.
Well, no, there is a suggestion that's valid from Billy Wazzer. Excellent new member. He says a lobotomy. That'll work.
Yeah, that's thinking of a less surgical way. Maybe if you get on eBay and pick up a second-hand neuralizer from Men in Black. Just to just wipe your whole mind of all the Black Swan and everything.
Yeah, the neuralizer doesn't exist beyond the fictional, heliocentric orientated movie series called Men in Black, though, eh?
I think this might open up a whole new field of work for psychiatrists because there'll be so many people going in for that. Maybe this is a good field for someone to make money in.
You're right. What Adams just said reminds me of a section in Red Dwarf where the crew of Starbug are under attack, and the cat says, "I know what we should do. We should strap on the rocket pants and Junior Birdman our way hell out of here." And Crichton the robot says, "Well, that's an excellent plan, other than rocket pants don't exist beyond the fictional series Robbery Rocket Pants. But other than that, it's a great plan."
That's a good one, too. Yeah, there's something about truth. Once you know it, your mind is going to be with your conscience bothering you if you try to deny it.
What exactly?
Man, too many people are like Cypher, and they enjoy the taste of that steak, even though they know damn well it's not real.
That's correct.
Yeah, that's true. But as you say, you can't unsee this stuff. You know, you've climbed over the metaphorical hill in this show's example, and you've got over the other side, and it's been a bump when you got there. Now, after the bump, you know, you look back up at the wall and go, bloody hell, that was a big wall. But then the bruises heal. Now, you unfortunately can't climb back over the wall because the motivation's not there to do so. You know, and in trying to climb back up the wall, in metaphor, it's covered in grease on the other side. So once you've slipped down the other side, you can't climb back over because all you're doing is causing yourself more mental anguish to try and indoctrinate yourself or go along with indoctrination that's no longer working. It doesn't function anymore. So it's just not possible to climb back over the wall as far as I'm concerned. And the people who come here, in my opinion, some of them have actually climbed over that wall, you know, and they're in depression. But they really want to go back to the bargaining stage. They can't bear the idea of realising the obvious and observable nature of the world. That is that it's flat, the sky isn't a vacuum, and we're not moving. And they don't want to. So they're desperately scrambling back at the wall, trying to get back over. And those are the people that have been nudged up the wall and then nudged over it while they've got into debate and discussion, not realising that debate and discussion also leaves you with a bit of realisation at the end of it. And without even realising it, you've been hoist on the shoulders of flat earthers till you've been bumped over the massive wall without you wanting to be. And then you go, oh God, get back over. We do have a geometric horizon. We don't.
Well, we know what happened to Cypher when he went for that steak. He got T-boned at the end.
Boom, boom.
I was thinking about that same thing there, Tenth, Cypher. And even in the film where he's asking to be put back and, you know, so it'll all go away, all the pain. You kind of see it, and you know that even when he's put back, his memory's still there. He can't get rid of the knowledge of what he's already known. The only way is, as Billy Waz says, is a lobotomy, is to actually wipe your mind of the cognition you've gained. And it's kind of sad, really, isn't it, that to stay in that world where you think you know something, you're happy to actually try and remove that cognition from yourself. I think it's a...
So you're saying when the ballers come here and their model doesn't hold up and they realize it's a fantasy, it's not real, they would rather have their mind wiped clean of everything rather than face the truth.
Yeah, the people on the other side of the wall, absolutely. They're in the same boat as Cypher. They've been, as I described, force-fed the red pill. And they can't believe it. And they're trying to desperately get back over the wall. With that, I'll say if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. A huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, and all that good stuff. Be sure to check out nathanoakley.com and the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on either Premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
day.